New footage and flight deck audio recordings emerged this week from the case involving the pilot who nearly brought down an Alaska Airlines flight while influenced by mushrooms. And while the footage is dramatic, what it reveals goes far beyond one moment in one cockpit. It reignites a conversation aviation has been struggling with for years. Let's find out what it is on Taking Off. Hi, I'm Dan Milliken. Known as the Mushroom Pilot, Joseph Emerson was a 737 pilot for Alaskan Airlines and was jump seating to work on an Horizon Air Embraer E-175 when he attempted to shut down the engines while the plane was in flight. We're going to play that new Emerson footage and audio, but we need to first talk about why this incident struck such a nerve across the aviation community. His story tapped directly into a pressure point pilots have been talking about for decades. The fear that being honest about mental health could cost them their ability to fly and thus their career and livelihood. And that fear isn't new. We've seen it surface in the worst possible moments like Germanwings, the 2015 crash that killed 150, which we'll get to in a moment. And more recently, creators like Xyla Foxlin sharing how difficult it is for pilots to seek help without risking their livelihood. Thousands of pilots feel the same way. And that's why the Pilot Mental Health Campaign's Mental Health in Aviation Act of 2025 matters so much. In the U.S., it passed the House in September and is now awaiting action in the Senate. The FAA says it encourages pilots to seek help and notes that only about 0.1% of applicants who disclose health issues are denied a medical certificate. Now, I seem to know quite a few that have been denied, so I'm not sure where exactly the FAA comes up with that stat. After years of pressure from pilots and medical experts, the FAA created the Mental Health and Aviation Medical Clearances Rulemaking Committee. Everything's got really long words. In December 2023, its goal, identify the barriers that keep pilots from reporting or seeking care and recommend ways to fix them. The FAA says it's adding more training for medical examiners, expanding peer support programs, and hiring more specialists to speed up the certification decisions. But despite these efforts, many pilots still feel that being honest about their mental health puts their careers at risk, a fear that didn't start with Joseph Emerson, our mushroom pilot. Germanwings 9525 remains the darkest example of what can happen when mental health struggles stay hidden. On March 24, 2015, the first officer locked the captain out of the flight deck and deliberately flew the aircraft into the French Alps, killing all 150 people on board. Investigators found he had been struggling with severe depression. He had hidden his condition from regulators, and that doctors had urged him to seek inpatient care just days before the crash. That information never reached aviation authorities, exposing a major failure in the reporting system. The tragedy forced regulators worldwide to rethink psychological screenings. But many pilots said nothing had really changed. They still felt pressure to stay silent because honesty could end their flying career. And that tension didn't just exist in airline flight decks, it exists for private pilots too. Zyla Foxland has spoken openly about how the aviation medical system affected her own flying journey. Receiving her pilot certificate in 2020 and buying her beloved Lady Lamar in 2021, she flew without issues. And then she had a routine appointment where her IUD, a contraceptive device, was replaced, and shortly afterward, she began experiencing sudden mood changes and depression-like symptoms. She later learned that for many women, a first insertion can cause a temporary spike in synthetic hormones before the body adjusts. She didn't know that at the time, only that something felt very wrong. And trying to get answers, she went to her primary care doctor because her gynecologist said an IUD couldn't cause mood changes, and Zyla didn't mention she was a pilot during the visit, and the doctor added major depressive disorder to her chart so she could get a referral to a psychiatrist. She self-grounded for almost a year, hoping her symptoms would stabilize like they had with her previous device. She didn't report anything to the FAA because, like many student and private pilots, she had been told not to self-report mental health concerns unless they were extreme. Eventually, she posted online about how badly she was feeling, joking that her IUD was trying to kill her. And some friends urged her to stay quiet, while other pilots admitted they hide similar struggles because of the medical rules. Shortly after posting, someone publicly commented that they had reported her to the FAA. 2 months later, she received a letter demanding her full medical records and requiring an evaluation with a designated aviation psychiatrist. By then, her symptoms had improved, but the evaluation process was long, intrusive, overwhelming. And when her response letter went missing in the mail, she contacted her regional flight office and learned that her medical had been denied. She appealed, went through additional reviews, and eventually got her third-class medical back under a special issuance. In 2024, she visited Oshkosh and stopped by the pilot mental health campaign booth, where she learned just how many pilots are affected by the same policies. She says she can speak publicly about her experiences because flying is her hobby, not her income. Many pilots don't have that privilege. Her story shows how even a simple medical misunderstanding can spiral into a months or even years-long fight to stay in the air. Pilot Mental Health Campaign is a nonprofit advocating for safer, clearer, and more supportive medical pathways for pilots. Zyla had connected with them even before her medical issues began, and after losing her medical, she became more involved, using her platform to raise awareness. Her video brought a wave of attention to the issue, and she later learned that her appeal moved faster than expected, a process that can take years for many pilots. And that's why the Mental Health in Aviation Act of 2025 matters so much. It directly targets the barriers that shaped Zyla's experience and the experiences of thousands of pilots who feel trapped between honesty and the ability to fly. The Act calls for clear medical guidance, faster and more consistent review timelines, better support for pilots seeking treatment, and a full overhaul of outdated reporting rules. It passed the House with broad bipartisan support, a rare thing, and now awaits the Senate. Which brings us back to the case that reignited this conversation for so many people, and the new footage and flight deck audio. Off-duty Alaska Airlines pilot Joseph Emerson was riding in the jump seat of a Horizon flight from Everett, Washington to San Francisco on October 22, 2023. 2 days earlier, Emerson attended a memorial for a close friend who had passed away in 2018. Grieving, he used psychedelic mushrooms while also struggling with alcohol addiction. On the flight, after 2 days without sleep and still under the influence, Emerson believed he was dreaming and pulled on the fire suppression system in the cockpit to try and wake himself up.
What's that? What's wrong? You want to be home? Sorry. Hey! What's going on? Huh? Yeah. Guys, and we need to make an emergency landing.
I'm sorry, who was that?
That's Horizon 2059. We got a Jumpseater just trying to shut our engines off. We need to go direct to Portland now.
A crew member grabbed his hands and restrained him, preventing a tragedy. The plane diverted to Portland, Oregon, where he was arrested, later charged with 83 counts of attempted murder. He told police he realized he wasn't dreaming only when he saw the passengers' faces as he was escorted off.
So were you trying to kill yourself? Zero. I was trying to wake up. I'm trying to wake up. Because I don't feel like this is real. Or it didn't feel like it's real. Okay. So when did you finally notice that this was real? When I saw the look on people's faces when you guys brought me out.
His attorneys argued that his action stemmed from a combination of untreated alcohol use disorder, acute intoxication, and sleep deprivation. Emerson acknowledged responsibility, saying, "I'm not a victim. I'm here as a result of my own actions. I'm guilty of interfering with the flight." He entered a no contest plea to state charges and was ultimately convicted of 83 misdemeanor counts of recklessly endangering another person and 1 count of endangering an aircraft in the first degree. The judge sentenced him to 3 years of supervised release with credit for time served, ordering him to remain 25 feet from any operable aircraft, and required 600 hours of community service, so no further jail time. Emerson is now working with medical providers and peer support programs and has been sober for several years. He has said that his delaying treatment harmed his life, and he hopes his experience encourages others to seek help. And while those 30 seconds in the flight deck were the worst of his life, Emerson is grateful to the crew members who prevented him from pulling the handle all the way. Joseph and his wife founded a nonprofit in 2024 called Clear Skies Ahead to address the stigma surrounding pilot mental health. And their mission is to improve aviation professionals' health and the safety of the national airspace through research, education, and support. They aim to streamline the medical certification process and provide financial assistance to pilots who risk their livelihoods when seeking care. Emerson shared that when he applied for his first medical certificate at 15, he had to check the yes box to several lifetime medical history questions: dizziness or fainting spells from locking his knees during choir practice, loss of consciousness from running into a pole as a child, and mild exercise-induced asthma from junior high. None of these were ongoing issues, yet the FAA later sent him a letter demanding follow-up. And throughout his career, he saw firsthand how the aeromedical system discouraged pilots from participating in their own health care. And after losing his certificate due to this incident, he's dedicated his time to helping others face these same barriers. All right, my takeaways. First, Emerson talks about wishing he had that 30 seconds on the flight deck of the E-175 back. He attributes that half minute as to when he failed, when his life changed. I disagree. He was a professional pilot. Professional pilots get drug tested all the time. Professional pilots do not do drugs or they risk losing their livelihood. The 30 seconds that cost him wasn't on the flight deck. It was when he decided to take a hallucinogenic illegal drug and chase it down with alcohol. I appreciate Emerson taking responsibility for his actions on the flight deck, but to me, more importantly, is taking responsibility for the poor judgment before he ever boarded that flight. And another takeaway is that mental health issues are a real problem for pilots. Now, if the Germanwings pilot had gotten help, there's a good chance he would have lost his livelihood. And someone who's in a mental place where he's okay with killing 150 people and doing his own suicide, then yeah, he doesn't need to be flying. But also, the FAA medical branch treating Zyla like she's the Germanwings pilot is not the answer either. And mental health is like other sicknesses and can grow worse. So getting treatment early on might bring healing to someone that's on the Germanwings path or the Emerson path. I don't know what the program looks like that fixes this pilot mental health problem. So I'm glad to see Zyla working with an organization and Emerson working with an organization, and maybe all together they can come up with a system that brings health and healing while keeping our pilots and passengers safe. Thanks for watching, and thanks to our sponsors who make our reports possible, like Flying Eyes. These are the best glasses and sunglasses under helmets and headsets. If you go to flyingeyesoptics.com/takingoff10, you'll get 10% off your order. These glasses have incredibly thin frames. I don't know if you can see that and how they bend, but these thin frames under the headsets and hats reduce that fatigue. I absolutely love mine. And if you haven't seen this report, check it out. And remember, superior judgment trumps superior skill. Take care.